Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Songwriting Simplified with me, Jonny Lipsham, here at jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk. I apologize sincerely for the delay getting started. Unfortunately, I had a bit of a problem trying to get the stream key to work, which is ridiculous because the stream key has always worked. It's always been the same stream key, but for some reason, YouTube Studio was basically not accepting the stream key, so I had to create a brand new one and try and get that connected to YouTube Studio, which it is now, and we are live and we are working, so I apologize. I've never experienced that one before, ever, so that is completely a new one in the, 7 years since I've been doing live streaming. Totally weird. Hopefully won't ever happen again now that it's all fixed up with a new stream key. So I don't know what went on. Anyway, I'm very sorry for being a wee bit on the late side there. But it took a wee while to get sorted because I couldn't figure out what the problem was to start with until I realized what it was, and then I had to work out how to get a new stream key. So that was what that was all about. So anyway, tonight we are going to be continuing talking about harmony and the importance of harmony in your songs and how you can use harmony to help basically sell your song, basically help tell your story and evoke emotion and interest and get your listener completely engaged in your music. And you can do this with a variety of different harmonic devices. And we looked at one or two of them last week. And so we are going to continue to look at some this week that you can add to your toolkit. And you can use these in any keys. So I advise that you learn these tools in all 12 major keys, all 12 minor keys, and kind of what you can do with them and how you can drop them into your songs to help tell the story that you want to tell in your songs, regardless of the genre of music. These will work. They work particularly well in certain styles and in certain genres, but they will work in any style of music. These are very, very cool harmonic devices. They've been around for a very, very long time and they work. So I'm going to give them to you tonight. So I hope these help you and you find them of interest. And whilst we are going through that little demonstration, which I'm going to do in just a second, then you can also put your questions for tonight in the chat as well. And you can put any question to do with songwriting broadly, lyrics we can talk about. We can talk about melody, we can talk about further harmony, things you want to talk about, chords, whatever it might be. We can talk music theory as well, because music theory is a big part of songwriting. And so if you guys want to learn more, you've got more questions on those kind of things, then get them into the chat tonight, because that's what this show is all about. It is about you and your questions. That's why I do this, to help you get better at songwriting, and also to break down some of the more complex things, make them simple and easy so that you can apply them straight away in your songs. That's what these shows are all for. So let's get started. Yeah, it's not to do with my YouTube password, Keith. It's to do with the stream key, not the password. Password is fine. Okay, let's go up and see who's here. Christina and Billy Morgan were pretty much tied for being first in the door. Well done to both of you. And followed shortly thereafter by Mike Johnson, currently residing in the Philippines. And he said he popped in to say hello. He'll miss the shows. He's heading to sleep. Yeah, because he is in my future. So midnight here. It's about 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning for him. So that's that. And just Bob says, I gotta miss the show. I gotta be up at 2:30 in the morning for work. Wow, 2:30 in the morning for work. Wow, that's amazing. So he says he hit the like button on the way out and we'll watch later. Yes, thank you, Bob, and I appreciate all of your support. Bob is one of my awesome moderating team. He's fantastic. So thank you very much, Bob, for all that you do for me and this channel. John Hathaway is here as well. He says people are here already. Yep, they most certainly are. And Kyle Trajuziak is here. Kyle, I hope you are recuperating well. Kyle, I think had a wee bit of a fall and has hurt his leg, so I hope you are doing well, my friend, and are resting up. Let's see. Tony Stringer is here as well, and he's going to be here for the entire show. Thank you, Tony. I'm glad you're here. And Bobby Booth is here. Don Oliver is here. And Harley Bob. And as mentioned, Keith from Radio Talk Trumpet is here as well. And Spin 180 is here. And Bob McGraw is also here, which is fantastic. And Tony is saying it's 2 a.m. in Cyprus. Yeah, you're nuts if you're staying up at 2 in the morning. Billy Morgan is telling me to start the stream. Yes, it was nothing to do with trying to start the stream. I was actually trying to start the stream. The problem was the stream key, but it's fixed now. Should not happen again, hopefully. Let's see, what else do we have? And who else do we have? Brett Marler is here as well. And Ron Figueroa is also here, which is great. John Hathwaite says, how to mix standard classical harmony with modes. Yes, we can certainly talk about that. It's a good question. Carl says, leg is sober in one piece, and I did a bunch of things today and survived. Awesome. That's good to hear, my friend. All right, so let's get into the meat and bones of this, and then you guys can keep putting your questions in the chat. And as John has demonstrated, please make sure you put at Jonny Lipsham Studios at the start of your question. I know it takes up, characters that are available to make your question. But yes, please do that. And that will help me to separate your questions from just the general conversation that's going on in the chat. I would appreciate that. Thank you very much, everybody. So I'm going to pray? No, I'm not going to pray. I only do that before I preach on Sunday. So I'm going to play for you this very, very cool little harmonic device. And it includes 2 little devices, actually. So it's 2 for 1, basically, 2 for the price of 1. So it's very, very useful. And like I said, you can play this in a variety of different keys and elicit the same kind of response. So I'm going to break this down for you and make it really simple for you, and then you can just apply this to your songs. All right, so here it goes. Let's move the mic over just a little bit. I'm going to turn the piano down a little bit so we don't distort. All right, so what is this all about? Well, you guys might recall from previous episodes where we have talked about melancholy, and maybe the saddest of all chord progressions, that going from 1 major to 4 minor. Well, this is that. This is going from 1 to 4 minor, and we've talked about that before. So just to refresh your memory, this is kind of what that sounds like in the key of C major. So we've got... kind of one of the saddest things that you can hear in music, chord 1 to chord 4 minor. So what we're going to do now is a variation on that. And it just makes the harmony just a little tiny bit more sophisticated, and adds some extra color to that 1 to 4 minor thing. And it happens over a pedal point. What's a pedal point? Pedal point is a bass note that doesn't change whilst the chords change over the top. You can have an inverted pedal point where everything underneath here changes, but the pedal note is above the chords and everything else, and that note stays the same, but everything changes underneath it. That's an inverted pedal point. This is just a normal pedal point. So, and I'm going to do this in the key of E flat, but I will show you this in C major as well. And like I said, you can do this in pretty much every key possible. All right, so key of E flat. One of my favorite keys. Why? Because it sounds so strident and bold and strong. All right, so doing this 1 to 4 minor thing with the strength that is the key of E flat will kind of add weight to this kind of melancholy as well. So it's very, very useful. Alright, so let me break this down because it sounds beautiful. So what am I doing here? So we've got a regular E flat major chord. And then to this E flat major chord, what we do is we add the 4 to the chord. Okay, so we have the 3rd and the 4th, but I've got these separated by a bit of distance as well. I mean, I could put them next door to each other, but I've got them separated by a distance here. So that's step 1. E flat major. Add the 4. And then the next chord is the 4 minor, but with the 6th added to it. So you get double melancholy because you've got the 6th of, which over this pedal kind of makes this into like a sharp 5 sus4 add 9 kind of chord, which is way more complicated than you need to think of it. So don't think of it like that. Think of it as chord 4 minor with the added 6th. There's chord 4 minor, which is A flat minor in this key, and then you add the 6th to it. But we've got this all happening over E flat. And then back to E flat major. Now, I'm using 2 different inversions of the E flat major to make this work. So I've got the second inversion, so we've got the 5th of the chord at the bottom. So we've got 5, root, 3rd, like that. And then to get that add 4, I drop the 5th down a tone. Like that. So we get this nice kind of dissonant kind of thing happening. And then the A flat minor 6, which resolves to first inversion E flat with the 3rd at the bottom. 3rd, 5, root. Okay, now we can make this even a little tiny smidge more colorful than it already is, and this is very cool. Let's turn the E flat major chords into major 7th chords. All right, so here's E flat major. So I've got this root in the middle here. If I drop this, because I've already got down the bottom, if I drop it down a semitone, you get this major 7. So if I make that major 7, keep that as the major 7, then drop down to the 4. Now we've got a new kind of dissonant kind of voicing on the top here. A flat minor 6. And then put like this G minor triad, which turns this into an E flat major first inversion chord. Okay, so gives it a little bit of extra flavor. All right, so let's do this in the key of C major. So we're going to use that that same kind of thing going on. So we'll have the same inversion of the chord, and then we'll drop the 4, and then we'll go F minor 6. And then that first inversion, C major. So that adds some kind of melancholy, some emotion to your song. So, you know, if your song has kind of very tender lyrics, or lyrics that are a little bit on the sad side but happy at the same time. So you definitely want the major key here. So you want that kind of sense of brightness and joyfulness, but with just a hint of sadness, or a little bit of melancholy or wistfulness. Then certainly this is that 1 to 4 minor thing is going to help you out. It's going to provide you with it's going to invoke those kind of emotions with these two chord changes, and then combining it with adding the 6, and then, you know, dropping the 4 into the major chord as well. All of those just kind of, those gives you extra little tone colors that are going to make this just, it's going to be it's going to move from being basic to being a little bit more colorful and a little bit more sophisticated, and add some richness and some depth to your chords. Are these possible to play on a guitar? Yes, they are. They're much easier on a piano, but you can certainly do this on a guitar, especially if you're finger picking. It actually would work really well if you're finger picking the arpeggios for this on a guitar. Would certainly work very nicely. But of course you can strum. You'd have to maybe find some maybe a little bit more interesting chord voicings than the regular standard, just simple, easy chord voicings that you'd find in a chord diagram book, to make that add the 4. You can do that on a guitar. What tends to happen on a guitar is because you can't really do that kind of voicing with the low F and the G together. That kind of doesn't really happen very well on a guitar. On a guitar, you tend to put the 3 and the 4 next to each other, like this, which on a guitar sounds very, very beautiful. It sounds quite okay on the piano, but it sounds particularly beautiful on a guitar. And then you've got this for the F minor 6. This is quite easy to play on a guitar. So it would be like this on a guitar. Probably something like that is what you would get on a guitar. But it would sound very, very beautiful, very nice, very colorful and sophisticated. So this would certainly work very well. And like I said, you can do this in all kinds of styles of music. You could do this as, you know, kind of an R&B ballad with some synthy pads, things like that. That would work very, very, very nice for these kind of chords. So this is just one little device. The other little device that I wanted to show you, which can really help kind of change mood, more than mode, but it does change mode as well, that will help you kind of with getting contrast between light and dark in your music and to help support your lyrics for your songs. So this one is when you're in the minor key. So that was major, so this is minor. And I'm not doing that chord 1 to chord 4 thing with this. This is a bit more of a little bit of a trick that you can do to kind of to help kind of give a flash of color and then go back to the regular darkness that you would find in a minor key. So let's say we're in C minor. And let's say, whilst we're in this arena of kind of darkness, and what we want to do here is bring just a little splash of color, a splash of lightness. What we can do is we can temporarily go to the relative major key, which would be E flat major in this case, like this. And we do a little pivot chord. So we do B flat with D in the bass is what we do. Up into E flat like this. And now we're in E flat major. And this kind of gives you that sense of defiance, maybe. So C, B flat over D to E flat, E flat over G to A flat major, and then we'll do the G7, sharp 5, C minor, B flat over D, E flat, A flat. And then you can, because you wanted to go back to the dark, you can hold on this A flat, change it to A flat minor, G7, and now we're back in the darkness where we started. So if we're writing something that's particularly sad, but you want to add this sense of defiance, then you could temporarily slip into E flat major, the relative major, and do this kind of thing with that B flat over D pivot chord into E flat. You could carry on riding up the bass if you want and go C7 over E into F minor, D over F sharp, G sus4, G, back into the C minor. So those are kind of things, these are little harmonic devices that will help add some emotion to your music. So take these ideas, the chords, you know, in the major, the C, add the 4, F minor 6, to C. to help add a little bit of a melancholic twinge to your music. Or in C minor, that pivot chord up into E flat, same pivot chord to A flat major, and then down for G7. That will all work as well. Okay, so give those both a try out. Take them all through the different keys. So I've done this in E flat major and I've done this in C. But definitely I recommend try this out in different keys and find which ones work for you. For example, let's try this in D major, the 1 to 4 minor thing in D major. Has a different feel about it, doesn't it? A different sound to it than the C major and the E flat. D major has a different kind of vibe about it compared to C major or E flat. E flat's really kind of, kind of bold and strident. It's a good key for that. Whereas just down a semitone, it has a different kind of vibe to it. It's a bit warmer sounding and not maybe quite so bold. So in this case it would be D, add the 4, G minor 6 to D. Okay, so try this in as many different keys as you can, so that you've got these two devices available to you in whatever key you need for the songs that you're working with and the keys in which you're singing. So you've got those available to you regardless of the key, is what I'm trying to say. It's worth working these out in as many different keys as you can, and you might find in some keys you have to change that second inversion chord that we start with and use a different one, depending upon if you're on guitar or piano. There'll be different voicings that work better, so bear those things in mind. But it's a great little vibe. John says you could do C major to F minor to B flat minor. Yes, you can certainly do that. And this also shows the power of inversions. Yes, really does. Really, really does. Sean Carr says, I believe Elton John does this in Funeral for a Friend. Love Lies Bleeding, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he does use that device in it's actually that kind. There's two devices that he uses quite a bit, and they are variations on both of these, where he does like the pivot into a major from a minor key. That's one of his devices. He uses that quite a bit, which is one of the things of being a piano player. All right, let's go to John's first question. He says, how to mix standard classical harmony with modes? It's a good question. So I like using modes. I use them a lot. I use them almost entirely all the time. I have two kind of theme tunes that I use for my shows. There's this one, which you heard at the start. And this one is based out of the Dorian mode. And basically the way I devised it was, there's this cool little feature in Studio One in the note editor where you can fix the scale. And so you can only input notes belonging to that scale. Really handy. So you can set that to Dorian mode, and then you can create chords just by, click and drag, and it builds a stack of notes. And then you can build chords that way, which is actually what I did with the piano part. If I was to just solo just the piano part. That's how that was created entirely. And then the melody was created using the same kind of thing, but I used a couple of the actions that are available in the note editor as well. One which was to add notes, so it just added notes randomly at a certain range, and then it added like notes pretty much filling in pretty much all 16th notes, and then I just did the thin notes out action, did that a couple of times, and that's how you end up with the bizarre off-kilter melody. And it just so happened that last phrase there happened to be very, very effective. I really like that. And then, so that's one Dorian mode, and then we shifted up into another Dorian mode for the B section. Except this time I've got the trumpet and tenor sax playing in harmony instead of in octaves, which is what they were playing in for the first section. So I use modes quite a bit. And there's also the other theme tune that I use for the Sunday Night Live show, which goes like this. And this is essentially a 12-bar blues, but I'm using the Mixolydian mode for each of the three chord centers, chord 1, chord 4, and chord 5. And that's basically what I'm doing. So it's basically G Mixolydian, and then when we get to C, to chord 4, it's the Mixolydian there. And then when we get to D, and so that's what I did for this, and I turned it into kind of a Miles Davis-y kind of 12-bar blues. Kind of works. So how do we mix up using modes with traditional, regular chord changes? Okay, this can be demonstrated fairly well, I think. So let's take just something nice and simple like let's say chord 1 to chord 4, but not the chord 4 minor, which is what we were doing earlier. Let's do just chord 4 major. We'll do this in the key of A flat. We don't play in A flat very often, so let's do it. So we've gone a little bit kind of hymn-like maybe, or maybe a little bit of Elton John kind of tucked in there. Maybe, discreetly. Alright, so how do we make this modal? Simple. And this is how I kind of think about it when I'm playing keyboards in church, actually. So, because, church songs tend to be harmonically very straightforward, very simple. And quite often the worship band that I'm playing in has 2 acoustic guitars that are playing regular chords, and they're just strumming those out. So there's not a lot of room left for the keyboard player to do very much. I could do exactly that, but the guitars are doing that. The guitars are doing this, so why do I need to do that as well? It just makes everything very thick, and there's just not a lot of extra color going on. So how do we do things a little bit differently? And this is where I start to think modally. I don't think about chord 1 to chord 4. I think about a mode. I think about the scale. So basically, I build my chords out of the A-flat major scale, which, by the way, is a mode. The major scale is called the Ionian mode. So that's how I think of it. And so what I do is I tend to open up the voicings and make them a little bit less major and make them a little bit more open and ambiguous. So I could use sus4 voicings, but those are going to clash with the guitars like crazy, so I avoid those. So what I do is I play stacks of fourths. So whilst the guitar players are strumming it out, then what I do is I stick in some chord voicings out of stacks of fourth, like this. Now, I could do that one, but I need to avoid that, so there are some that work and some that don't. This one works. A stack of fourths starting on G turns this into a major a major 6 chord with the major 7. Major 7 add 6. And then I can just shift that down a step. So we've got G, C, and F. Shift that down. F, B flat, E flat. So whilst the guitar players are, I can do things like this. So I'm using that G stack and the F stack, and then also a stack of fourths on B flat as well. And then a stack of fourths on the third of the chord, the C. Which is actually just a different inversion of the F stack. Sorry, the G stack. And those are the ones that work the most. So, you know, whilst they're kind of duking it out on the guitars, and you've got your bass player driving along, going A flat to D flat, A flat to D flat, really quite boring for the bass player. He's probably going to fall asleep any minute now. And so that's one example of how I approach normal, major, minor, tonal chord changes with approaching it from not a chord's perspective, but from a mode's perspective. And I just pick out notes from that scale. And the reason why I do that is to provide color that nobody else is playing. And also it makes it more interesting for me as a keyboard player to do that kind of thing. And it means I don't have to think about chords anymore. I can just think about playing notes from the scale and building chords out of those, and I'm not having to think about chord changes. Everybody else is thinking about chord changes except for me, and it makes life a lot easier. And if I really want to be adventurous, then I might stack 2 stacks of fourths on top of each other. That one doesn't really work. That one works better. And then if you're getting desperate, this one works. So that works over the D flat. And then so there, that gives you some options, John, of how you can kind of go for that modal kind of sound, but in a traditional major minor kind of basis. It works pretty cool. I like doing that. Let's see. Neil Thompson is here. And he says, Songwriting Simplified. Hello to the people. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. So give those a try, John. You might find those useful. John Hathaway is saying he was at a folk metal gig on Saturday when my band's ex-bagpiper was playing and singing in Latin. Had lots of fun with the conjugations. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that he would. Yeah. Latin is a fun language, and it's a little tricky to sing in. You know, I think when Mel Gibson did The Passion of the Christ and decided to do everything in a mixture of Aramaic and Latin, it was a bold choice. But let's just say, hard languages to do dialogue in for sure, unless those are your native tongues. But yeah, fun choice. Latin has been used for singing in since, you know, the Gregorian modes days, way back, and which is of course where all these modes like Dorian and Mixolydian and Aeolian and Ionian and all of that, the Locrian scale, that's where those all come from. So yeah, singing in Latin was the thing, but yeah, Latin can be quite complicated, to say the least. Okay, we got any other questions? Let's see. Bobby Boo says, I like the Sunday theme better, and he says that sounds more like a hymn. Yeah, it probably does. Keith Chadwick says there is a fun challenge, making a song with Latin lyrics. Even better, let's make a Latin song with Latin lyrics in a Son Montuno Latin style. That's a very, very cool possibility for a songwriting challenge. Because I don't think many people here actually understand maybe how Latin music works. And when I say Latin, I'm talking about Latin American music and Son Montuno and that kind of thing. It sounds glorious. It sounds fantastic. It's possibly the most danceable music you could listen to or dance to. It's kind of simple, but not simple at the same time. So yeah, let's do let's do some salsa with proper Latin lyrics. That could be interesting. Currently trying to do a song using old German poetry. Yeah. What you mean, like old Saxon German? That will be challenging. It'll probably sound a little bit like Klingon, I would imagine. Let's see. I'm going to go back to John's other suggestion for chord changes, which was C major to F minor to B flat major. Yep. Let's try that. So we got C major, F minor, B flat major. So we got C to F minor. Yeah, and you can go round that. That's the beauty of that little thing. major. Pivot chord again to A flat major. And then you can do a 2-5-1. Kind of works, but kind of doesn't, because you're actually, because we've gone into the flats, we've kind of gone to the dark side, so you kind of have to go to C minor to make that really work, or G minor to make that really work. It would work if you're going to G minor. So C minor, sorry, C major, F minor, B flat, over D to E flat, E flat over G to A flat, A half diminished, your D7 flat 9 to G minor, then G7 to brighten it back up so you can get back to C major. Kind of nice. Kind of like that. Kind of like that. Let's see. Push that back. Brett says, so you're stacking fourths over the A flat majors, creating a major 11th chord, not a major 11th. So we've got the root, major 7, 3rd, and 6th. So it's basically like a major 13 if you really want to think about it that way. Or if I do this particular stack here, we've got the 6, the 9, and the 5. This is kind of like a 6-9 chord to major 13. I tend to not think about it that way because you're overcomplicating it. Simply, if you're going, okay, A flat major 13 to A flat 6-9, just think of it as a G stack and a G stack and an F stack over the A flat. If you do the B flat stack on top, you've got the 9, 5 roots. Bar blues. From the A flat minor, you could go to A flat major, F minor, G sus4 to C. Yes, you could certainly do it that way. Absolutely. All right. We were a little late starting. I apologize for that. Yeah, that was a weird thing with the stream key, and I know Keith has kind of suggested, hey, this might be somebody trying to hack you. He sent me a message saying, cycle YouTube password, because stream key hijacking is a method that hacks commonly use to get into your account. Yes. Yeah, the stream key, I don't know, it's the first time like ever that's happened. So, but yes, I will take all precautions to make sure it doesn't happen again. And it shouldn't do. So the stream has a new stream key. It's all kind of good from that point of view. And it won't be worked out by hackers because of that, I don't think. And so I think we're pretty good. But yes, I will be changing my password. I use strong passwords. I have a password creator that generates passwords. And so they are like highly encrypted passwords that would take like thousands of years to figure those out. So those are the kind of passwords I use for pretty much everything, including, social media and banking and everything else. They're all kind of really, really smart, sophisticated passwords that would take somebody, thousands of years to try and crack. So that's kind of what I do. But yes, that's a good suggestion. Thank you, Keith. Brett says, so you're changing the stacks in the bar. Yes, but you don't have to. Yeah, you can do whatever you want with those stacks. You can keep them going for as long as you want. It depends upon the style of music that you're in. If you're kind of doing a more ambient-y kind of thing, then yes, you can make these stacks last a lot longer. Modal music is great for ambient music. I'll give you a little example. Like if you want to write something that's very kind of atmospheric and evocative, then look no further than doing something in either Dorian or Aeolian mode, because it can be particularly beautiful. So this thing I'm going to do just now is it's actually based on the E flat melodic minor scale. So there's a lot of black notes involved and only a couple of white notes involved. But you can create all sorts of really sophisticated things by not thinking about chords anymore, just thinking about the notes from the scale. So check this out. it can be a lot of fun because you're no longer thinking about chords. You're just thinking about taking notes from the scale to make melody and notes from the scale to make some chords. And the chords don't have to progress in the traditional sense. They don't have to move like, we did earlier with chord 1 to chord 4 minor and that kind of thing. It takes you completely out of that realm and much more into sounds for the sake of sounds, which is much more in keeping with the early 20th century impressionist school of music. So people like Ravel and Debussy were probably two of the big French composers in that impressionist kind of school, and they were taking their inspiration from French impressionist painters like Monet, and they were kind of seeing their artwork, and then they were kind of thinking about what they were doing with shifting tone colors in their paintings, and thinking about how to replicate that musically. So that's where, those are the kind of things that they came up with. So definitely something that you can check out. Dorian mode, E flat melodic minor is another good one to use. And of course, for the Halloween challenge, if you remember back to that one, we used the Locrian natural 6 scale, which is a weird sounding scale, but is fun to play around with. There are other modes. So we've got modes of the major key, which are the ones that we're familiar with, things like Mixolydian, Lydian, Aeolian, Ionian, Dorian mode. All of those come out, and Phrygian, and all of those, as well as the Locrian scale, they all come out of the modes of the major key, which is what those all are. But there's a whole nother world when you start thinking about modes of the minor. Okay, so those get really interesting. They have some slightly weird names and some equally slightly weird sounds as well. And they are fun to dig into as well, but those are pretty much outside of the scope of Songwriting Simplified, because it's no longer simplified, it's songwriting kind of advanced, and advanced harmony when you're getting into minor modes. So there, and of course there are two. There is the melodic minor modes and then the harmonic minor modes. So there's like a whole bunch of extra kind of scales that you can learn about that have some fascinating names. And I studied those when I was studying composition and musicology for my degree way back when, many years ago, and I got into some really advanced kind of modal thinking of modal concepts, some of which I still use and play about with. I don't tend to bring some of those things into my songs in particular, but I do when I'm writing something that's a little bit more orchestral. I do tend to bring those kind of modes and those ideas into my orchestral works when I do those for, student films, that kind of thing. So I hope all of this was helpful and useful for you. Go take that chord, the 1 to 4 minor thing with the drop 4 and the add 6. Go take that. It's a great little device, and go and, put that into different keys and see which ones you like the sound of the most. And of course the other harmonic device, the pivot into major and then going back to minor again when you're in the minor key. Go try those out. I think you will find those really useful and helpful to get more evocative sounding music, more emotional sounding music that will really, kind of engage with your lyrics. So try those particular devices out. We will talk more harmonic devices next week, and then we'll get into some melodic devices and ways in which you can write melody, because I know some of you out there are struggling with writing melody, so that the melody doesn't sound like it just rambles aimlessly. So how do we get, our melodies to be fixed and clear and concise, that tell the story without kind of just sounding like you're just rambling up and down a scale. So that's kind of where we're going to go next after we've finished up with harmony, which we haven't quite finished up with yet. So next week, little bit more harmony, and then we'll start thinking about going into melody after that. So there's plenty to get your teeth into for Songwriting Simplified this year. And as I've said, we've got interviews and guests and stuff like that, as well as contests coming up as well for 2024. So there's loads coming up. So I will see you on Sunday for Sunday Night Live. Same time, same channel. Hope you can be here. It would be great if you could. Thank you very much for all of your questions. Please hit the subscribe button if you've not subscribed yet already. If you're just kind of watching and you're not really involved in the chat because you're going, oh, it's subscriber mode only. Yeah, you got to be a subscriber to be involved. If you would like to be involved and you haven't been this time, that's fine. I don't mind if you've not been involved. That's great. It's okay if you just sat back and watched for a wee bit. That's fine. But please do hit that subscribe button. That will open up the chat for you. And then if you've got a question, maybe sparked from this week, then, you know, you can ask it next week. It's cool. So you can certainly do that. You can also go to the website down the bottom there, jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, hit the contact us button, and that will take you to the contact form. You can fill that out and you can send me a much more detailed question if you would like to do it that way. You can certainly do it that way. But otherwise, I'll see you on Sunday for not for Songwriting Simplified, because that's today, for Sunday Night Live, where we'll be talking Studio One, and I'll be taking your questions about Studio One usage and Studio One issues that you might have. Just on that point, there was an update for Studio One that went out this week, Studio One 6.5.2. Please go and check that out. It fixes crashes where if you have AU version 3 plugins that were causing Studio One to crash, the AU v3 plugin format is not a supported format. That's why you're having the crashes. So what happens now is, to stop Studio One crashing on launch, is it filters those out completely. So the AU v3 will not load because they're not supported in Studio One, and Studio One should no longer crash if you are one of those that has plugins in that format. And there's a new feature added so that you've got integration with Revoice Pro 5. That's a new feature. So if you have Revoice Pro 5, then I think there's some extra integration for you guys. I don't quite know how that's going to work, but I think it has something to do with ARA integration, just like you have with Melodyne. You should now have that with Revoice Pro. So that's that. But otherwise, I'll see you on Sunday, 6 p.m. Central. Be there or be slightly oblong, or something like that. I need to go back over to the other song for the correct theme tune music. But otherwise, until then, folks, I will see you on Sunday. There's an after show that Billy has just posted up. If you want to come join us, then please hit that link, and we'll see you over in the after show Zoom call. Good night, folks.